Hello, I'm Chris Solo, and welcome to the Fabled 42, where we build community through friendship, gaming, and chaos. You're currently watching the Quests and Answers, and you catch us live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific here at twitch.tv/Fabled42. But before we begin today's show, we're going to talk about some announcements. Anything that you see on any of our streams that is 3D printed is brought to you by our friends at Griffin Co. We are Vorpal powered. Our video and audio displays, player indicators, digital dice, zoom features on the battle map are all brought to you by Vorpal Board. Also, please make sure to check out our Patreon. It's a great way to show your support to the network, help us fund some of the projects that we're doing. And our way to give back is we're starting to pump out a lot of content that is Patreon only. As well as we are doing some other really cool things like UkadorCon, where we have a couple community games that some people just, play in the games by default. But we are... I'm not talking to Taryn at all. The only way to join these games is to go through Patreon. Sorry, I derailed myself. So, without further ado, today we're going to talk about Icewind Dale, the Rime of the Frostmaiden. And why are we talking about this book, besides the fact that it's completely dope and amazing? Well, we're talking about it because the Realms of Ukador has started the Rime of the Frostmaiden. And I'll get more into that a little bit later, but we're going to do some introductions now. So we'll go to Taryn, then Diane, and then end with Ronan, and then jump into today's discussion. If you have any questions or anything, just go ahead and throw it in the chat. I'll grab it, and then we'll get to them as quickly as possible. Taryn.
Cool. Well, hi, my name is Taryn Hackett, and if you want to check me out on Instagram, I am at Valrook. That little guy. Look, I'm getting better. VALROUK on Instagram. I post nerd things and D&D themed things, and of course pictures of my beautiful fluffy cat and my love.
All right.
That's good. Hi guys, my name's Diane Hall. You can find me at the Pretty DM on Instagram and Twitter. And you can find me here on Wednesdays and next Monday and in October doing Fabled Femmes games and my own show, The Legends of Shah Ogal, will start on the 19th. Very excited.
And I am Ronan Fox. You can find me at Ronan Fox on Instagram because that's really the only one I do. I am editor for Fabled 42 and a writer, and you can find me later on tonight in Wizards.
That's right.
Oh, and I'm a lifetime Frostguard member. Thank you.
Yes. Oh yeah, same ditto. They're the best.
Yeah, tonight is the first
There's
episode
Moonlander.
of the actual houses. So tonight is Frostguard. So we're going to do some fun stuff with that. And the next subsequent episodes will be some other trials and things where we'll like intermingle the houses. So lots of fun stuff with Wizards of Ukador. Only 3 more episodes left in this little mini series, and we'll do another one probably in November, December. I can't remember. But so today we are talking about Rime of the Frostmaiden. We're gonna probably touch on some spoiler stuff. So if you don't want to be spoiled, look away. You've been warned. So the Rime of the Frostmaiden is pretty epic and amazing. And it was funny, I was talking to Ronan about this the other day, and then I just kind of decided to do it. Which I was talking about, we were talking about, the hell were we talking about? We were talking about I was doing like a winter thing, and then I think you mentioned Rime of Frostmaiden, and I'm like, yeah, cool, it looks cool, I haven't looked at it yet. And then I looked at it. So I had planned, well, the funny thing is I had planned for you all to go to the frigid expanse before I even looked at Rime of the Frostmaiden. I had it bare bones outlined with a number of quests and things to do to hit major story beats, and you were supposed to go there because I thought it would be fun to be in the snow, complete culture shock to what you all are accustomed. Get you out of your element, get you somewhere else. And like the really deep cold is kind of scary just in general. And then I read Rime of the Frostmaiden, and I was like, well, D&D is obviously spying in my house, because this is now the third time.
I feel
Third time.
the same. Second time for me.
Yeah, third time was Tides of Ukador, and then they came out with Ghosts of Saltmarsh. And then I can't remember what the second one was, and this is the third one. No, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. Oh, no, it was Origins. So Origins is very, very based off of Greek mythology, and all of the things that we ended up, Origins stopped a little prematurely, but, that is definitely Theros. Like, there's so many things that we had done in that. But, so reading through Rime of the Frostmaiden, it's amazing.
Really good.
I think it could be scarier than how it's written, but because I think they pitch it as a horror adventure.
It is considered a horror. Being a super horror fan, it could definitely be amplified horror-wise, which I probably would do, because everything I do is horrific. But it is still considered. It is still considered horror. There are themes of like freezing to death and being isolated, which during this time in the pandemic, some people might be triggered a little bit more by being isolated than they would usually.
Yeah, it's it's got some flavor of The Shining and The Thing.
Shining, The Thing, and Alien. A little bit Alien.
Yeah, there was literally a picture of something shooting out of someone's chest, and I still didn't identify what the hell that was. But we can talk about that.
I found it, and it made me happy.
I read this really great article that was on D&D Beyond about this, and it was titled "Creating Terror Without Being a Jerk," which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
And it lists like some things. It lists some things. I mean, whatever. It lists some themes, and one of them said, what did it say? Like, alien gestation. So maybe that is the thing that's coming out of the chest. I'm not sure.
Well, it's based off of, I don't know if you want to jump into that, but it's based off of one of the mechanics that it introduces, which is the secrets thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I've been using that.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I was also just kind of happy to see it like implemented in a source book.
Oh, absolutely.
Fun.
Yeah, I thought it was cool.
But like one of them is amazing, and it's like, by the way, basically you have a slot in you, and if you don't do something about it, like it's gonna come out of you and eat all of your friends. And if you wait too long to tell anybody for help, like it's over. And I'm kind of just here for introducing an NPC with that. I hope my players aren't watching.
The first thing I thought of when I read that was I had asked a question, I think last week or maybe the week before, about what do you do with a character who just doesn't give you a lot as far as story elements go. I think that table pretty much answers that question. Just throw one of those at them.
Oh,
there you go.
Absolutely.
That's what you got now.
It's interesting because I have a lot of that stuff already, and I've loosely added it to some players' backstories in some of the shows. And NPCs as well. Like, it's kind of like my deck of many things, right? Kavak's Bag of Fate, where I've modified a lot of the things to make it not game-breaking, but it is like, it's quest-giving. Like, the whole point of it is to give you something to do that is not the main story arc. So give you just some more depth with the different things of the story. But, yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Diane, too, is like, I'm going to make this a lot more horrific than it is in the book. Because, I mean, obviously, they take 3 steps in this place, and all of a sudden they see a Yeti that was ripped into bits everywhere. And I'm trying to get better with describing the graphicness of that. But,
I also, I want to point out that, because I've rewatched last episode, and I didn't click that it was really dark. It's going to be dark forever. Right? Keelan is so scared.
Like thematically and actually. Yeah.
Well, and let's talk about it. So we're going to talk about some things about what is the rime. So the rime is like a curse or something that Ariel, who thinks that she's a god, the Frostmaiden, is pissed off or whatever, and has put this rime for forever winter. That's what the rime is. I'm kind of calling it. I probably still call it a rime, because there's a gray area with the way that I'm doing this production, and eventually this will be a novel, like the first one is working into be. Like, I have to make sure, and even if we have to repurpose it when we go to the script for the text, and I have to call it something else at that point, then that's what I have to do. Because there's gray areas with the legalities of all that. But, so yeah, I mean, it's going to be dark. It's not like night dark all the time. Like, it's that endless, like, if you ever lived in Chicago,
Twilight.
or, you know, Washington, like, it's just really dark, cloudy all the time. And just, you know, precipitation everywhere. Like, but you don't ever see the sun.
I need to refresh.
Oh no.
I don't know why.
Sorry.
I'm 100% gonna play up because even in my home campaign again, this like fell perfectly. Like I have a whole icy region, super excited to get there, and so like I'm going through this and I'm reading, you know, about like basically it's Twilight all the time, and then oh my gosh, some of the monsters, the Cold Light Walker. I was just like, oh, I can't wait to just drop this and absolutely, yeah, it's just good stuff. There's the horror in it is awesome.
Yeah. What was that, Ronan?
I was just gonna say, I think the themes are there for general consumption, right?
Sure.
So you can take those themes of isolation and cold and all that sort of stuff and amplify them as much as you want in your own story to make it.
Yeah.
But the scariness of it is all up to you. But those themes will remain, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting taking normal creatures. Spoilers. Taking normal creatures that you have, and you know.
Oh, it's so cute.
All this, so cute. This is a really big owlbear.
It's beautiful.
It's still cute.
When it's ripping your face off. It's so cute.
Anything can be a friend. It is a cute death.
No, they befriended an owlbear in the first season. You guys won't do that again. This is a
I
Yeti
have
season.
a Yeti. I'm happy. Okay.
So you know, yeah, I think it's really fun because you can take a lot of creatures. I'm adding bases to things, right? So like I have these giant. They're called Carricks, where they're like 6-legged rats, you know? Like, it's super spooky. These things could be anywhere, right? I have, you know, flesh golems are always super fun, which kind of makes sense, right? You know, you have renders. I love renders. Oh my god, I love them so much. They're like really big gremlins. I don't know if you guys have ever played with a render. Bone claws are always a favorite.
Bone claws.
But
I love
yeah,
bone claws
it's
so much.
I think it's really fun, and the visibility is what really like amplifies the horror aspect, right? Like you're thinking like, man, this is really scary out here. We've all seen, you know, Empire Strikes Back. You can't see shit, and all of a sudden it's there, and you're like, ah, like it just shows up. So I'm hoping that I can convey that enough in our games, but you know, and then when you get to the really scary dungeon, you're like, oh, this isn't so bad. But no, it's really also scary, and there's all these weird things with like stomach mouths and all sorts of crazy things that try to eat you. Like it's
stomach mouth. Sorry.
Okay, the
It's
monsters
my
in
favorite
this
monster in
book,
the book.
Okay, there you go. There's a fun one. What's your favorite monster? And Tyke already is just like a given.
Tyke's not a monster, just so you know.
Let's look at the monsters. I'm gonna pick my favorite too.
Okay, I already have. My problem is I can't pick because there are.
No, mine is the one with the stomach mouth.
The tomb taper.
It's called
the
tomb.
It's pretty good.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I love it so much. They seek magic, and
I'm a little confused on these weird mind flares. Let's talk about that.
I love them. They're beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding me? The gnomes.
the gnome. Yeah.
You see, like my favorite thing about him too is like his DC is like 7.
But what weirds me out about that is because in the Mind Flayer lore, they don't usually do their ceremorphism or whatever it's called with like small creatures because they have like a process, like they want taller.
Yeah.
And
well, it kind of describes saying that like it doesn't happen, and when it does, like usually like they don't function well. They're not very good. That's how you get the little squiddly guy.
It's really cute though.
I was about to say, you want to talk about so ugly. He's cute, and he's got
Not
like
ugly at
little
all.
tentacle legs. Look at him. He's not my favorite, but he's cute.
I don't know, man. The dragon's pretty awesome too.
Which one?
You don't know.
The Charlotte.
You don't know.
Charlatan?
Yeah, you don't know.
Well, Chardonnay or whatever the hell that
Charlatan?
organic metal is doesn't exist. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, that one is very cool though.
Yeah, that dragon
Within
it
the
shoots
book.
radiant. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge damn construct dragon that shoots radiant energy. Like, that's ridiculous.
I just picture the like golem thing from Thor. Like,
Yeah, it kind of feels like that.
Hmm.
It was funny because I was watching Real Steel today, so it's like it's a good mashup of the two.
Oh yeah, okay, I can see that.
so
But-
what's your favorite solo?
You know, I
This is gonna be
actually,
very telling.
well, I like my monsters better than what I find in any book. So I mean, you'll know from any of the monsters you ever fight are never from the book. They might be like partially from the book and then reskinned. I actually like the Frostmaiden. I like the 3 different versions of Ariel. I think that's kind of a fun way to introduce a boss. Because you kind of get teased, and then you get teased some more, and you're like, wait. And then it's like, oh shit. And then it becomes this big thing. And I have a lot of really exciting things and twists I'm going to do with that as well that I think it'll be really fun to kind of experiment. But, you know, I think it's, again, like I hesitate to talk about it, but we're gonna find out about it soon. But you know, and I've changed some of the things, but like the sacrifices to Ariel that the towns do, like that's deep. That's super deep. Like the bigger towns sacrifice humans.
Deeply messed up.
Like they do a raffle once a year, once a month, and they kill somebody. They just send them off and say, "You're fucked. Go die," and then they die, and then
Like
that'll bring back
some
the sun. But like, imagine if one of those NPCs is someone that the party knows.
Oh my gosh.
And
Don't get attached to people.
but here's the thing. There's so many different variables to this, right? So like, okay, you know, Bob the bartender, who I might have talked to them twice, they're gonna feel compelled to do something. If they do something, what happens, right? Does a town turn on the party? And now, because they're major towns. There's only like 4 major cities, right, or 3.
Yeah.
Four. Yeah, there are four big cities. So what happens? I mean, they all meet every month. So like, word gets out like these motherfuckers broke our pact, and they went and saved somebody that was supposed to be sacrificed to Ariel. Like, now what? That makes everything immensely different and more difficult. Or you just deal with it. Or Kiwin, when she's scared of the dark and lights some fire on the wrong night, and she's gonna get pummeled to nothing. What's gonna happen at that point, right?
Or the towns that want to sacrifice food, they decide to use a certain goose.
Yeah.
Right. So there's definitely a lot of fun things to do. So when I was doing this, and I was talking with Ronan again about it too. So like when you look at Rime of the Frostmaiden, oh, my son took my map. It comes with a really cool big map, right? I love the big maps. He's playing with it right now, and it really doesn't matter because I'm never going to use it. But there it is. It does show the 10 towns, and it does show like the big area of the Icewind Dale, which is this huge expanse, right? All the towns are like centrally located around 3 different lakes. But the interesting thing about all those towns is they all hug a body of water, except for a couple, right? So I have this on digital too, so I have a spreadsheet for every town with all the NPCs and their shop names and what voices they use. And I've gone through and modified. Obviously, Icemire is not a town in this. This is actually... which one is this? I forget which one this is. Oh, this is actually Targos, right? So I took Targos, I took the map, and I modified it because everything in my expanse is all on the coast. So it's on a coast or a bay. So I turned all the things. But the beautiful part about these adventure books, when you get them, is it says put them in whatever worlds you want. Like there's nothing that I did that broke the game, right? I'm doing it for brand recognition and to fit into our show. So then I can have ownership of this as we go into this adventure. But I didn't really do much to the cities. Like, I changed NPC names. I added more NPCs to each of the towns. I used some of the core stuff, which is really cool, like the Snowflake System, which we can talk about.
That's what I was going to ask you if you did that.
So, yeah, the Snowflake System and the size of the towns are all the same. What they sacrifice is all the same. and it's just like NPC names. And I actually had to, which I spent a good portion yesterday doing, is like, because I've reorganized everything, some of the quests didn't make sense coming from the same town that it did in the book, so I had to give it to a different town, you know, to make it whatever. But let's talk about the Snowflake System, because I've never seen that in another thing, but it's very handy.
I think it would be very cool as a DM, and I haven't DM'd that much, but you know, if your players are like, hey, we need to find X, and you'll be like, that's not, you know what I mean? It gives you a quick reference of like what kind of town it is on its surface.
Well, it helps.
Yeah.
You know, so going back to what I did, so like my big towns normally have a cookie cutter. I do this very easily. I used to make big towns like you see in the maps with like 55 locations. It's a waste of time. Don't do that. You know, tavern, inn, general store, leather goods, blacksmith, bookstore, potion shop, ferry, barracks, temple, and the keep, right? Or the leader's house. That's a big town. And then a small town has everything but a bookstore, a potion shop, and like maybe the leather workings. You know, so you isolate and you trim down like what services they have available, which is cool. Like I've never done that before in that, like how friendly they are, how many services they have, and how comfortable you're going to be when you stay there. Like, is it a really shitty place and you don't want to be there very long? You know, like you're probably not going to stick around to do the quest. So you have to think about that, right? So you can't have 10 quests coming out of a town that has a comfort of 1 and friendliness of 1. Like the players are not going to stick around. So you as a DM have to think about that and either change one of the two things. Either make the quest come out of somewhere else or, you know, make it not as shitty. Or give them some other reason to stay, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the system is just a direct result of the fact that there are so many towns straight out of the gate. You know what I mean? Like, as a DM and even as a player, you got to have some way to kind of keep all these things straight. And I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, honestly, that's one of my favorite things to do just as a DM with, like, any source book, though, is to kind of go through and find, like, cities that I really like or towns that I really like or even NPCs. I'll just, you know, insert whatever part and find ways to mesh them in, throw in some of my flair. If, like, especially my home campaign right now that I'm running is, like, kind of, like, just on the verge of Steam Engine-esque, and so I have to modify a few things. But doing that works really well, and then it takes some of the work out of it, but it also can just be like just a little bit, just enough of a spark to just completely drive you in a whole different direction. Like, so like I really enjoyed like the mechanics that this whole source book brought in. I'm so ready to use just a lot of it.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my players just ended up in a snowy area, and I'm ready for them to get some avalanches and frostbite and
those were neat implementations.
Having a mechanic for that. I am so excited to drop that on all of my players, and if you guys are watching, I am
blizzards.
Mm-hmm. the idea of like having blizzards. A person disappear in a blizzard is terrifying. You know what I mean? And then having to sort that out. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I thought it was funny because I gave Eric that thermal cube, and I saw Taryn in the chat like, insta nerf, which it was because like you know I've changed it now so it's only 32 degrees, so it's like right at freezing. So it's not as noticeable, but you're not going to freeze to death if you're with Eric or around Eric. But like when you think about that as mechanically, like you can't walk around with a cube that radiates 95 degrees of heat. Like you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. They're going to freak out and you're going to be dead in 5 seconds.
I was just saying they're going to kill you for it.
The entire
you're
town
just
will
like
murder you.
Chilling in your normal clothes, just like in the middle of a blizzard.
I show up like this. I'm like,
you got no sleeves. They're like, what's up? Why aren't you dead? Like, what are some other interesting things, and it's spoilers or not spoilers, whatever, what are some of the other cool aspects that you all have pulled out from the book, like, or what you want to see maybe, or maybe something that's in the book that isn't in the book that you wish you would have seen?
I have so much appreciation for, like, the vampirism thing with the kobolds. I love adding, just, like, tweaking stuff that, like, it kind of goes back to just DMing again, those creatures that they're in everything, but tweaking them just enough to make them.
Vampires are cool, so vampire gnolls, I'm here for it. Vampire and kobolds. I'm here for it.
Oh, I love it. I love that character. He's gonna come somewhere because I love him. I love him. He's happening. But like really though, I think that I don't know, it answered a lot of the questions I had about sending people into cold areas. So like the blizzard mechanic and the avalanche especially.
I just like the total difference because 5e's been so centered on the Sword Coast.
Yeah.
And like three cities, right? Waterdeep, kind of Neverwinter, and then Baldur's Gate, which I love. I love all these cities, like they're classic.
Yeah.
But it's like going from, you know, the west coast of the United States, like up to Alaska. Like it's the same country, but 100% different.
Yeah.
And I just like, I think it's really cool, and I love northern climate, and love, like, you know, Iceland. Like I've been to Iceland during the winter, so I've like experienced the dark most of the day situation, and I like it a lot, and I'm excited to have just a lot of information on winter things. And there's some sort of Goliath sport. I haven't really read it, but it's
goat ball? Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Because for a horror campaign, you need to break it up with some sort of like lightheartedness.
It's interesting that they put that in there because what I read about the Goliaths, like they're not cool. Like they're antagonists in this, aren't they? Isn't that how I
think they kind of have their moments. Like there's that's actually one of the things I really liked about this book, like going through it without even spoiling anything, is like the players have the option to, you know, go smash through stuff, or you can try to talk your way through some things.
They're basically two rival clans. So how you deal with that's up to you.
Yeah. That's cool. We actually have a question. I'm going to pump out a question real quick. This is from Wolf Squanch. There always seems to be some creatures, mechanics that people would rather not use for numerous reasons. Are there some that are already flashing some red flags on the first few read-throughs? If so, why? Any red flags? I mean, you kind of touched one for me. Is the linearness of the actual.
What?
Is the what?
Oh, Taryn disappeared and came back. It's the linearness after you get past chapter 2. You know, once you get into chapter 3, it's like story. Like I like it to be a little bit more freeform, so that was my first red flag, and because the players are already level 5, and technically it's like chapter 1 is like 1 through 4, and then chapter 2 is like, you know, 3 and 4. They're already 5, so I've already bumped up all of the encounters to fit where they are right now. And my encounters tend to be a lot more difficult than they come out of the book anyway. So just kind of having that in mind, I'm going to spread them out a little bit more. So it's not so linear, but it'd be very much like World of Warcraft. So like when you get quests at World of Warcraft, you don't just do one quest and come back. You get like 17 quests and you're like, and then you come back, right?
Yeah.
So kind of do stuff like that, but let the players figure that out, and then go from there.
That is definitely a red flag, just because if you DM and you expect it to be like that, you're gonna have a bad time. Because your players are gonna do something that you've never thought of.
Yep.
And I learned that real quick being a DM. Now I used to plan like 5 pages worth for every session, and now I have like half a page of just beats. But to get back to the question, for me, I think it would be easy for a newer DM to go a little crazy on the winter effects.
Yeah.
You know, like if you are
and another blizzard.
If you are playing this like level 1 to 11, which is what's recommended for the book, and you keep throwing blizzards at them, or you keep throwing like all these stuff at them, like it might be a little difficult early on. And there is a flow chart in the book, which I love. I love a good flow chart, and it tells you what level your character should be in every every chapter, which I think is great for someone who
gives you a ballpark. Yeah.
It gives you a ballpark, and then it would be easy for a DM who, like Chris, is taking it and putting it into your own campaign, and you need to scale it, whether it's scaling up or scaling downward.
Yeah.
Like if you don't want 10 towns, you could go straight into, chapter 2.
Yeah.
And just scale it for lower level or higher level, and you should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting direction too, because like all the towns are very close together. Like if there is somewhere in there that it's a chart, like the biggest gap is like 10 hours.
Yeah.
My map is a little more spread out, and we're gonna see how that works, because the whole point of it being short is like you only have to deal with today's storm. You don't have to camp out there overnight.
Yeah.
I like you to camp out there
overnight. But I want to camp. Yeah, I want to camp.
Yeah. So overnight. There's some of the towns are like a day, like it's like a day's travel. So you'll have to travel and then camp out and then travel some more. Like that's gonna be a thing for most of the towns, because I think it adds those other elements. Because like, otherwise, when are you gonna get in those encounters? Just when you're going to a quest. So like every time that you go to a quest, you have this other sub-quest, and that's a little repetitive, right? So when you have a quest, you just want to do the quest. You don't want to be random encountered right now. It's when you're going to another town to get some information, that's when you get random encountered. Like that's a little bit better, but it's also random. I'm gonna roll it, so we're gonna see what happens if that works. Like, I'm gonna roll a blizzard meter. Like, are you gonna get hit with a blizzard today? Like, that's a little different. So I'm gonna see if that feels good, but that, I don't like losing control either. So you lose control, then you lose the pacing, you lose what's going on. Because like if something really cool is happening, but I'm like, oh, I rolled a blizzard, you're getting a blizzard anyway, and then that might ruin a moment. So, being cognizant.
Yeah, I think those are more designed for when there's just a lull. You know what I mean? Either in the story or entertainment. You're just like, all right, well, here you go.
Yeah.
Figure this out.
Yeah.
But one of the things, just sort of to the question, one of the things I read it as more of a player, right? Because I haven't DM'd a whole lot. So one of the things that I thought was strange, or at least is going to be on the DM shoulders, is and I won't get too far into the weeds, but the major story arcs are very different. So you're going to have, the DM's going to have to tie those together to keep reminding the players, what are you doing? Because it doesn't feel cohesive. Super cohesive.
Yeah, the one Duragor dude who I can't remember his name, like he's his own thing. Like he has nothing unless I misread something. He has nothing to do with Ariel at all. Which
it's basically a couple people who are taking advantage of this situation. So they have their own sort of plans and stuff that don't tie into that. So
which actually, you know what? Now that we're talking about that to me is a red flag, because why do that's a random encounter? Like
it is.
Yeah.
If Ariel is as strong as she's supposed to be, why would she let that fly? Like that wouldn't make sense.
Because she doesn't care. Like what I've read about her, she don't care. She's just cloistered away in her little tower, and she likes to go cast spells every day and to heck with everybody else for no reason.
Yeah. But so then your antagonist doesn't have a motivation, though.
But there is some play in there as to why he's doing it.
Yeah.
She's keeping it casual. That's what Casual Campbell said. I like it.
Jordan, of course.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other red flag too. Was that? Yeah, and I really just wanted to spill the beans, but obviously I can't do that. We'll find out in 6 months. As we continue to go through this, because you guys will definitely be level 11 or 12 when you're done with the thing. I mean it's there's so many things I want to talk about, but I can't. Diane,
I didn't get to hear.
I mean, I'm gonna just be watching. So, like, what?
Everyone in Realms, get out of the chat.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good points, but again, it does open up, which I think it does a better job with this one than the other ones that I've read. And I don't usually do, the adventure source books, right? Like, Tomb of Annihilation was the only one that I ever kind of did, and still, I did my own thing. But all those stories are linear. Like, this is an open world sandbox, at least for the first part, which is cool. Like, there's a lot that you can do. They probably won't do half of it. Everyone wants to jump on a sperm whale with a giant inflatable bag and go underwater because that sounds cool, but I doubt anyone will ever get there, right? So, like, there's all these really cool things, and then you could always add your own stuff in this world.
I've been the coldest I've ever been in my entire life whale watching in Iceland. So, like, I'm having flashbacks right now. I apologize.
I am land mammal. I don't go in the ocean. It is not a thing. Boats? Mm-mm. No.
So
Especially with big things swimming under me. Absolutely not. In D&D, however, my character's brave as all hell. No problem. I'm great if it's fake.
So I have a question, because all three of you guys are DMs. One of the things I have DM'd the, what are they called? Starter adventures. The
starter set or the essential kit?
I've done both. And I will say this book feels very much like that. I mean, it feels very kind of hand-holdy in the beginning a little bit to help the DM.
I mean, absolutely.
I agree. I think it would be a great thing to like start with the starter set and then have your party like travel up to the spine of the world and just scaling the adventure, of course.
Well, and like something like that.
What was your question, Ronan? You didn't ask your question.
Do you agree? I mean, do you think that this would be a good adventure for somebody who's never DM? Because one of the things I looked up was like good adventures for new DMs. And they're like, it was just a bunch of don't try this ones, and I'm like,
I would agree and disagree.
Yeah, I think if you have a decent understanding of D&D mechanics, like if you've never touched it, okay, maybe not, but if you've at least played and you're familiar, like, I mean, it does a lot of hand-holdy, but I don't need it, but like if somebody doesn't have a lot of experience, I'm kind of appreciative that it's there for them.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean,
one of the reasons I would say I would steer clear of this for your first, like, as a beginner, is just because since it is a horror adventure, quotations, you just need to have a lot of trust with your players when you're jumping into horror, because even though for me this is not horror at all, for other people it's definitely horror.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been watching Hellraiser since I was 2, so this is nothing. But
I have questions.
Still can't watch Hellraiser.
It's my favorite. You should watch it.
It still messes with me to this day.
I have lots of stories. Anyways, but you need trust when you're running a horror adventure. I trust that my DM, Chris, is going to push me just far enough over the edge where I'm scared, but I'm not going to be running away from my computer having a panic attack.
Sure.
I would actually be really happy if that happened, but that's besides the point. But
challenge
yeah, you have to be able to push your players just enough and have that communication, because if they can't be dealing with the solitariness or being caved in and whatever, then you need to know that, and you need to go in a different direction, like even if you want to do that, or find new people to play with, but you just have to.
You know what I would suggest, but you know what the interesting thing is because it is so hand-holding, everything is done for you. You have all these beautiful town maps with key locations mapped in there. NPCs are built out. There's like 20 quests that are all like pages and pages. Like there's 4 pages about the Plesiosaurus. Like that's amazing. All these different things that can happen, right? So an idea is taking the starter kit and taking that adventure and throwing it out or making your own. But maybe your players arrive in Icewind Dale before the Rime sets in. So then it's normal day, fishing, it's cold, sure, but it's not as cold as it's going to be. So then you kind of ease into it, because some of these quests have nothing to do with the Rime. So the Rime could be something that's happening while you guys are there. It's like, why is it still so cold? You know, spring should have been here before. You know, like you have them coming like, you know, in spring. Like we're expecting to come out of this winter and it never stops. So then you can like start to ingest that, like, oh, what's going on, and then it slowly becomes that horror, because you can do that. I mean, when you think about, not everybody does what I do, right? So like usually it's like 2 or 3 episodes every level until you get to 5, and then once you get to level 5, it's 6 episodes before your next level, and it's cookie cutter all the way to 20, and that packages it into 2 years, and that's what I do for my games. But think about that, like 3 episodes every level, like that's a lot of levels. That's 15 sessions that you can ease into this horror until you get to level 4 or 5, and then you jump into it. And at that point, you'd find out if they're like, I don't know if I want to do this, and then you can maybe go a different direction, or you just kill them and then get somebody else.
Well, yeah, and having a session 0.
Yeah.
Session 0, say, I'm running this, it's a horror campaign, are there any triggers you have?
Yeah.
Just being 100% upfront, and then if you have a player that says, like, I don't like horror, and then you say, well, get the F out. And
well, you can also say,
okay.
what triggers do you have that I'm not allowed to push?
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
Yeah.
Like what are absolute no's and what are like I don't like this. Fireworms and but which he definitely said snake in the first description.
I did.
I watched it.
I did.
And you're like, it's not a snake, it's a worm.
I realized again, and that's one of those things where, again, if you're when you're a DM and you have to really, really pay attention, like, you know, Diana said she doesn't like snakes, and I'm like, well, you know, we actually haven't had that conversation. Like, well, should I not do snakes at all, or is it just like touch it lightly? And like when it came out, I was thinking lava worm, but then I said snake, and then her reaction, I was like, oh, this is just a lava worm.
No,
it's
totally fine.
Yes.
Just like any like older big brother. As soon as I told him I didn't like snakes, he sent me a picture of him and a snake. But whatever.
I have a 5-foot ball python, so there's that.
Well, see, and like it kind of goes back to that conversation you guys had about DMing a while back, though. Is just know your players and like what they want, what they expect.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like
but
as
some
a player,
people are
I don't
playing online with people they don't know that well, and that's why I just say like if you have a session 0 and you plan on doing a horror movie or horror campaign movie, let's all make a movie. Whatever.
So,
but again, I think that the disclaimer is that it is horror by technicality, but all of that stuff can be scaled way back.
Yeah.
Oh, it definitely can. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Get rid of the darkness all day, and then they're just traveling through tundra. Like
if you want to run this, but the fact that it's horror is holding you back, I don't think it should.
Yeah. No. Yeah, you can definitely. I don't even think it's horror, but I mean, there's a couple weird things in the dungeons, but you can always dial that back.
You can make it like a classic northern high fantasy campaign.
Yeah,
easy.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, saying like as a player, like in game, like nothing scared. I'm fine. I'm one of the rare players. Like I have like next to nothing that's not touchable. But then I do I 100% have players where like I know what they've been through. Like we've been through a lot together, but I know like some things affect them more than they affect me, and so like I keep hands off of like my players is mostly like emotional triggers, and so like there's just some stuff that like won't touch it. We're not gonna go there because like I know how it affects them.
Yeah.
Like just because I can do it, but it just I don't know. Like this story had like, and that's one of the best things about like not just this supplement, but any of them. Is you can like ramp it up or scale it back or any of it for any of them.
So let me ask you guys this question. You know, I had already kind of planned that I was going to send you guys through a portal. Didn't think it was going to be that easy, first off. That was just silly.
No.
But, I mean, I knew better. That's kind of on me. Like, I'm fine and it's cool, but like knowing how heavy those triggers for your backstories were, obviously, like I expected you to be like, you know, like you're both DMs too, so I expected you not to be fully character. I expected you to be like, oh, let's investigate this portal. What is this? You're like, no, you just run in. I'm like, oh, thank you for not being meta. That's amazing.
Inside, I was like, holy shit, this isn't real. This isn't real, Diane. This isn't real. But Keewan's like, oh my god, my brother, I have to go. So I really try really hard to be in game. I take my DM hat off.
Yeah.
And I'm not a DM. So.
I even take my DM hat off. Like you guys have seen this a few times where like I'm really in a character. I'm like, oh wait, I have to DM a game. Like we're not just in this tavern all day. But so here's my question. So because those of you who are watching and the two of you who are not a player, they didn't know. They had no idea they were going to a frozen tundra for this whole first 2 arcs of this campaign. No idea.
I thought we were going to Nightcrest.
So, thought process on that. So it is relative to Icewind Dale and that, but more of the big twist, like, oh shit, we kind of got railroaded, kind of not, ran through a portal, it's a one-way ticket, which is there's reason. So the whole purpose of the portal, this is a little meta, but you guys will figure it out soon anyway, if you haven't figured it out already, is the White Cloaks would bring magic users there, but you have to go through the portal by your own will. You can't be forced through the portal, which means how are you going to get someone in there is you bait them with a loved one or something. So it starts to pull on your emotions and memories. That's the magical nature of this cave. So it's like a fly trap, essentially, and it brings people in there, and then usually, if they're aware of it, they have people on the other side that will nab them up and whatever, but you guys will figure that out, because it is connected. But yeah, curious on thoughts on that, on the transition from being a normal fantasy D&D game, thinking you're going to do XYZ, to now being in the snow with a completely different experience.
First of all, I don't feel like I was railroaded. I feel like I made an in-character decision and there was a consequence. I don't feel like that's a railroad situation at all.
Yeah. Well, you guys took, like, I mean, you had I think even the railroady option would have been, well, we're going to follow the townsfolk.
Yeah.
And we're going to go see where they're going first because we'd like to check in with some people. And you guys went, there's a trail.
Well, so, we were trying to do, like, okay, they're safe. They're going south to Nightcrest, so we're going to go check out, east. And
I think it felt very impulsive. But to character, it didn't feel completely out of the blue. It just, that happened and there was a reaction and that led to consequences. I also think anybody that's watched the first realm to this one, it's nice to see. I mean, because I don't think anybody was. Well, I know I wasn't, but certainly they weren't expecting that so soon. So to have that come out of the nowhere is pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and that was the idea. Is like, everything is supposed to be different. I say I'm not going to give these guys a bunch of magic items. I like giving people magic items, but and trying to do things differently. So having more things on the line. So we have multiple threats. You have the orcs from up north. You have these white cloaks. What the hell is the Frostmaiden, which you guys don't even know yet? Why are all these wizard companions just running around without their wizards? Like, what happened to the wizards? I don't know if you guys are even asking those questions yet.
Diane's wondering those questions.
Yeah, and that's the tie-in with wizards. So, like, that's something that we didn't do with Realms, because Realms was a standalone show. And then eventually I started tying things into Realms after the fact. But it wasn't like, hey, if you watch this show, it'll give you some spoilers on this show. And, like, that's the idea with Wizards now, which I'm happy that it went through that. But, yeah, I mean, it was... I was going with the flow. There was a couple different deterrents and a couple different baits. And I kind of do them evenly, and you guys took the one direction. And then, followed those breadcrumbs. I actually didn't think you would, though, because you guys are traditionally, so far, we've only done so many sessions, but you guys are usually a little bit more reserved. We're like, yeah, let's go to Nightcrest, let's get the full story, let's get some more information and supplies,
well,
and then we'll go back.
Wanted to go to Nightcrest. She mentioned Nightcrest multiple times.
She did.
Yeah.
Whatever.
She was rather opposed a couple of times. But I enjoyed. No, I didn't think it seemed railroady. It was kind of fun. I mean, and then honestly, like, the dice kind of just decided because they completely failed their checks a little bit.
I barely.
The only
failed.
one that did. Well, then you have Eclipse. He's just like, I think this might be fake, but don't care. Like, I think I saw.
Well, at that point, everyone else is running it too, so it's like.
Well,
for Carrick, who's like.
So.
I like that he tied a rope around himself only to have everyone run in.
Well, so,
I love
and that's the thing.
That scenario.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beautiful part is when you go back and you watch this. This is where when you're not at the same table, you have the benefit of having someone a note without everyone knowing. I sent a message to Diane. I sent a message to April. Say, hey, roll a wisdom save. They both rolled a 14, which was hilarious, and they both did the exact same thing. So it was so, like, because here's the thing, is when we were all in the same room, and I hand some of them a note, all the other players are like, there's a note. We're paying attention to that player now. Like, they're instinctually meta paying attention, which is when Lizzie and Eric were like, wait, what? They were already gone. I want to grab them. No, they already said they've been gone already. Yeah. You literally sat there for a minute and a half and processed what just happened. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm excited because it's like, you know, fish out of water.
For all of you. Yeah.
Like 100%. I mean, just thinking about Eclipse, like, you know, kicking around the snow, like mad that his like sister or whatever like wasn't there, and
well,
I want to see Snow Kitten happen. I want him to get like really riled up and just go kitty mode in the snow, because it'll just make my little heart happy more than anything. Just to see like a Tabaxi being like, oh my gosh, snow, and then just getting the zoomies, like
hopping.
I actually just imagine him like Mad Mardigan from Willow rolling down the hill, and then at the end. That's what I imagine. But it's funny that you say that, Diane, actually, because you all have different backstories that have led you to where you're going, right? And you all, the premise for pretty much everybody is you're running away from something, right? And this is kind of meta, but we've all kind of figured out everyone's running away from something, right? You know, one character's not supposed to have left to go do this thing on their own, but they did. You know, 2 people are fleeing because of XYZ. Other people are fleeing. So everyone's on the run. Now, and you have these backstories and you're in this comfortable place, and that's the reason why I wanted to send you to the north anyway before Frostmaiden, was for that. Like, now you're not running away from anything anymore. You are in a completely different space, and now you're running towards something together. So that was the thought, was now I'm unifying the group even quicker than I would have long term with this scary Frostmaiden thing.
And the themes help that, like, so you can surround yourself with either an enemy or fighting off the environment, and this is a perfect place to come together.
Yeah.
Well, and like honestly, like there, like in that setting too, there's options for sowing distrust, and like just because the way that I think, honestly, to me, even as a player, that would be some of the most horrific element to it, is like there are things set up in that world, and in certain settings, especially like the Necropolis, to make you distrust your party, and question like what their motives are. And like I think that's the scarier thing, because that is what isolates you in this setting anyways, is like distrust. And so then you're isolating yourself from the people that can protect you. Like, I don't know, it's pretty cool.
Okay. So we only have a few more minutes. Does anybody else in the chat or any of you all have any other questions for myself or anybody else?
I didn't get to hear Ronan and Diane's favorite monster.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Oh, my favorite monster is the Tomb Capper.
Yeah.
Is that the one with the stomach thing?
The stomach mouth,
That's mine too. I like that. It's horrific.
Well, the Knoll vampire is pretty cool. Not, obviously, the Yeti tyke is my favorite. I actually I had looked at, I got the book last Wednesday, and I like skimmed through it, and I was like, this is so cool. I can't wait to, like, you know, and I knew my players were ending up in the snowy area, like the next session, and then round, like, you know, the last session happened, and as soon as we ended the call, I like grabbed my book and I like was ripping through it, and I was like, oh my god, it's so cute. And I messaged everyone like the art that is from the book, and I was like, I am just like so because it didn't click in my brain until the very last second when Chris said me to roll that like last check to see that he had the little mark on his forehead, that it was like that it wasn't just a Yeti that I'm gonna help get to like a new home, like that this was my Yeti. So
yeah. Well, and I say, like, for me, like, it was a given. He was stupidly cute. There's a lot of cute art.
There's a lot of cute art.
Vampires and kobolds, super cute. I don't know why. Don't ask me.
Because vampires are cool. That's why. You don't have to say anything else.
But 100%, I love the idea of the cold light walkers, like, they're my
Ooh,
favorite
yeah.
in the element of horror because I am picturing them camping and like them being on their watch and suddenly like in pitch dark, suddenly light flashes across their face. Like I'm loving the element of
which one?
Haha. What is it? The Cold Light Walker, the spooky boy with the glowy face.
Yeah.
Because it's the thing.
I wanna talk before about the living spells.
Oh my gosh,
which is
so cool.
a really cool new thing that I never seen before.
But what is it? I'm sorry.
The living spells. So like a spell that has essentially been transformed into a living creature and has sentience. Pretty cool. Love Big Sand as a spell just in general, but
the wizard spells in the back are dope in the epilogue. Are pretty amazing.
Oh really? I haven't really looked.
You were talking about that. I didn't even look at that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh yeah, that's the thing you sent me.
Yeah.
The necropolis too, just that setting. Like I like a lot of that. I would want to complex it up a bit and take some stuff out and things, but it's really fun. But the living spells in that area are, I love it. Because it's kind of like little mini puzzles.
Yeah, there's also a section on here connecting the backgrounds that you can find in the player's handbook to Icewind Dale. So it's just an easy way to get your character invested in the location, since it's a brand new area for everyone to play in. So
there's a little conversion chart too, isn't there?
Yeah.
On races and things.
Just the charts in this thing in general are great.
Yeah.
Like all of the tables, I love that kind of stuff because it can help.
There is a conversion chart. There's also a if you don't have Volos, the book that has the Goliath race in it, it has the stats to be a Goliath player character in this book, which is cool because they have a huge part in the campaign. So.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Maiden. I super love the Maiden.
Yeah, I was actually just about that.
I love the concept of those guys.
Because they're constructs, right? So like you're creating like a unseen servant kind of, but it's an actual thing that will do more than that.
But they're seen. I really would be excited, like, because of that, and like some of the stuff that they set up with this. I would love to see them as just like a random like $3, D&D Beyond race at some point. Just them like coping with the fact that they are just a
also
remnant.
Like what was the group that's like mages that are described as like Wild West cowboys? What are they called? Oh man,
Arcane Brotherhood or something.
Yeah. They describe them as
I love
like
how
this.
much they hate each other.
Yeah.
Like, there is no loyalty there.
I'm actually surprised you guys didn't talk about the Chewinga, the little people.
Okay,
but I do love the Chewinga. I first saw them in the
the one that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. What's it called? That book.
That one.
Volo.
That one
I'm talking about.
Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah.
You first see Chewingas there, and I use them actually just to play a little prank on my players, like when they're randomly marching through the jungle.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chewingas are super cute.
Yeah.
Well, and I like that that little bit of Inuit lore can kind of be worked in there some too, because that's the other thing I like to pull from like real world mythos and everything, and kind of drop it in, because like honestly some of that stuff is just, there's enough creative element in it that it's really cool to play with.
I have a giant box of white sand now, so I am ready.
Oh no.
So with that, go ahead and enter Frost in the chat. We're going to go ahead and close up here, and this is our between show giveaway. We're going to end this stream here in a second, and then start the timer for Wizards of Ukador that starts at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. But thank you all for chatting with me. This was fun. Like literally, I have been thinking about Wednesday all week, and it's ridiculous.
Me too.
I think I'm more excited now than I have ever been about something.
Waiting for
yes.
Wednesday. That's what I'm
That's
always
our new
saying
thing.
now.
Waiting for
It's
Wednesday.
Waiting for Wednesday.
Waiting for Wednesday.
I like it.
Yeah.
But thank you all so much. Go ahead and hit Frost in the chat. I'm going to stay in the chat, and any of these fine folks will probably be in the chat
I
as
will
well.
be there.
Continue to ask questions. We'll answer other questions, spoiler free, however you want to do it.
Unless
see you guys
Chills
soon.
asks me questions.
He might. He will. You know he will.
I'm gonna get it.
But we will see you guys later.
See ya.